The Draconis Imperium was the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known. It stretched across 12 star systems, and every planet within those systems bent the knee to the dragon race. They were beings of fire and scale, ancient beyond human understanding, proud beyond measure. Their cities were built from black stone and burning metal. Their ships moved through space like predators through dark water. And at the center of it all sat Emperor the Eternal, who had ruled for 3,000 years and planned to rule for 3,000 more. The Emperor was massive. His scales were the color of obsidian mixed with gold, and when he breathed, smoke curled from his nostrils like promises of destruction. His eyes burned with the light of dying stars. He had conquered worlds. He had crushed rebellions. He had sired hundreds of children, each one a potential heir to his endless throne. Dragon children were called hatchlings, and they emerged from their eggs already magnificent. They came out with scales gleaming, wings spread wide, voices already capable of roaring fire. A dragon hatchling could fly within days of birth. They could hunt within weeks. They were born perfect, because the dragon race did not accept anything less than perfection. This was the law. This was the way. For 10,000 years, every dragon child had emerged from its shell strong and whole and ready to claim its place in the universe. Until the egg had seemed normal. It was large and beautiful, its shell swirling with colors of deep blue and silver. The Emperor himself had attended the hatching, as he did for all his offspring. The imperial court gathered in the great hatching chamber, a room of black marble and eternal flames, to witness the birth of another prince or princess of the Imperium. The shell cracked, the court held its breath, and then the hatchling tumbled out onto the warm stones. Silence fell like a blade. Was small, too small. His scales were dull instead of bright. His left wing hung crooked and withered against his side, twisted in a way that would never allow flight. His back right leg bent at a wrong angle, and when he tried to stand, he collapsed immediately, crying out in pain and confusion. The Emperor stared at his son. His golden eyes went wide, then narrow. Something cold moved through his ancient heart. Around him, the court began to whisper. Some turned away in disgust. Others looked at the hatchling with something like pity, which was worse. "My Emperor," said Lord, the chief advisor, stepping forward. His voice was smooth and careful. "The law is clear. A defective hatchling cannot be permitted to survive. It would weaken the bloodline. It would shame the imperial house. It would suggest that the dragons are capable of producing." He paused, searching for the right word. "Failure." The Emperor said nothing. He watched his son struggle on the stones, trying again and again to stand on his broken leg, mewling softly, not understanding why his body would not obey him. "The traditional method is quick," Lord continued. "A single breath of flame, the hatchling will feel nothing. It is mercy, my Emperor, it is kindness." Finally managed to lift his head. His eyes found his father's face. They were blue, those eyes, like deep water, like the heart of a glacier. They held no understanding of what was happening, no knowledge of the debate about his life. They held only one thing, hope, the hope that his father would help him stand. Emperor felt something crack inside his chest. It was small, barely noticeable, but it was there. He could not kill this child. He did not know why. Perhaps some weakness had crept into his own heart after 3,000 years. Perhaps he was simply tired of death. But he looked at those blue eyes, and he could not bring himself to breathe fire. But he could not keep the child either. A crippled prince would be a target for his enemies, a source of mockery, a symbol of imperial weakness. The other dragons would never accept. They would torment him. They would break him in ways far than a quick death. So Emperor made a different choice. A choice he told himself was mercy. "The hatchling will be sent away," he announced. His voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. "To the frontier, to Terran Station 7. He will live among the humans, out of sight, forgotten. A servant will attend him. He will have food and shelter. But he will never return to the Imperium. He will never bear the imperial name. He is no longer my son." The court murmured in surprise. This was unprecedented. Dragons did not live among humans. Humans were considered barely sentient by dragon standards, short-lived creatures of soft flesh and strange emotions. Sending a dragon child to live among them was almost worse than death. It was exile. It was erasure. Lord frowned but did not argue. "As you command, my emperor." The servants came. They wrapped the crying hatchling in cloth. They carried him away from the black marble and the eternal flames, away from the only home he would ever know for only a few minutes of his life. The emperor watched them go. He told himself he was being kind. He told himself the child would not survive long anyway, weak as he was. He told himself this was the best choice, the only choice, the right choice. He told himself many things. And then he turned away and returned to his throne, and he did not speak of again. Weeks later, a small ship landed on Terran Station 7, a human trading outpost on the edge of known space. It was a dirty place, full of miners and merchants and travelers from 100 different worlds. The air smelled like recycled oxygen and fried food. The corridors were cramped and loud. An elderly dragon named stepped off the ship, his scales gray with age and his eyes dull with resentment. He had been a minor noble once. Now he was a nursemaid to a broken child, exiled to this miserable rock as punishment for some long-forgotten political mistake. In his arms he carried a small bundle, had stopped crying by now. He had learned, even in his first weeks of life, that crying did not bring comfort. It did not bring help. It brought nothing but cold silence. The humans stared as walked through the station. They had never seen a dragon before, let alone a dragon carrying something so small and fragile. Found the quarters that had been arranged for them. 2 small rooms in the lower district, barely fit for animals. He sat down on a hard cot and looked at him with contempt. "This is your life now, little broken thing," he said. "Forgotten by your father, abandoned by your people, left to rot among these human vermin." He turned away. "I will feed you because I am commanded to, but I will never love you. No one will ever love you. You were born wrong and wrong you will stay." Lay on the cot, his withered wing pressed against his side, his twisted leg aching. He did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. He understood the coldness. Outside the small window, the stars burned in the endless dark. Somewhere among them, the Draconis Imperium blazed with power and glory. Closed his blue eyes and dreamed of nothing at all. 3 years passed on Terran Station 7. Woke up every morning at 5 o'clock. She showered in cold water because hot water cost extra credits she did not have. She put on her uniform, a faded blue dress with a white apron, and she walked 20 minutes through the station's lower corridors to the diner, where she worked 12 hours a day serving food to miners, traders, and anyone else who wandered in from the cold of space. Was 26 years old. She had dark hair that she kept tied back in a practical ponytail. She had brown eyes that were often tired but never unkind. She had come to Terran Station 7 4 years ago, after their mother died and left, and her younger brother Marco with nothing but debt. Marco was smart, brilliant actually. He had been accepted to medical school back on Earth, a dream that cost more credits than could count. So she worked. She worked doubles. She worked holidays. She worked until her feet ached and her back screamed and her hands smelled permanently of cooking oil. She did this because Marco was going to be a doctor. He was going to help people. He was going to make something of himself, and was going to make sure he had that chance, even if it meant spending her best years in a greasy diner on the edge of nowhere. She did not complain. What was the point of complaining? You did what you had to do for the people you loved. The night everything changed started like any other night, was closing the diner, wiping down tables, stacking chairs. The last customer had left an hour ago. The station was quiet, most of its residents asleep in their quarters. She took the garbage out to the alley behind the diner. It was not really an alley, just a narrow corridor between buildings where the station's waste systems connected. It was dark and it smelled bad and hated going there, but it was part of the job. She was lifting the garbage bag into the disposal unit when she heard a sound. A small sound. A whimper. Froze, she listened. The sound came again. It was coming from behind a stack of broken crates in the corner of the corridor. It sounded like an animal, or maybe a child. Was tired. She wanted to go home. She had been on her feet for 14 hours. Every smart instinct told her to walk away, to let someone else deal with whatever was making that sound, but had never been very good at walking away. She moved the crates aside carefully, and there, huddled in the shadows, she found something she had never expected to see. It was a dragon, a baby dragon, she realized, though she had never seen one before. He was about the size of a large dog, covered in blue and silver scales that had gone dull and gray. One of his wings was twisted wrong, folded against his body at a painful angle. One of his back legs was bent in a way that made wince just looking at it. He was thin, so thin she could see his ribs through his scales. His eyes were closed, but they fluttered open when she moved the last crate. They were blue, those eyes, bright blue like Earth's sky, and they looked at her with a mixture of fear and exhaustion. His heart broke clean in half. She had heard about the dragon that lived on the station. Everyone had. The old one had died a few weeks ago, she remembered. Some kind of illness. There had been paperwork, bureaucracy, messages sent to the Dragon Empire about what to do with the young one. But bureaucracy moved slowly, and apparently no one had bothered to check if the child was being fed in the meantime. "Oh, baby," whispered. "Oh, you poor thing." The dragon tried to move away from her, pressing himself against the wall. He was shaking. Whether from cold or fear or hunger, she could not tell. Knew she should call the authorities. She knew she should report this to station security and let them handle it. Dragons were not her responsibility. Dragons were dangerous. Everyone said so. Even a baby dragon could breathe fire, could bite, could hurt her. But all she saw was a starving child, alone and afraid, abandoned in a dark alley like garbage. She reached out her hand slowly. The dragon flinched. She held still, letting him see that she meant no harm. "It's okay," she said softly. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you, I promise. I just want to help." The dragon watched her with those big blue eyes. He did not move. He did not breathe fire. He just watched, like he was trying to understand what she was. Took off her jacket. It was the only warm thing she had, and she would be cold walking home without it. She did not care. She wrapped it around the dragon carefully, gently, feeling how light he was, how fragile. "Can you walk?" she asked. The dragon tried. He pushed himself up on his 3 good legs, but the twisted one buckled immediately, and he fell. A small cry of pain escaped him. "Okay," said. "Okay, that's okay, I've got you." She picked him up. He was heavier than he looked, but not by much. He fit in her arms awkwardly, all angles and scales in that poor broken wing. He was cold, so cold. How long had he been out here? The dragon tensed in her arms. Every muscle in his small body went rigid, like he was waiting for something terrible to happen. "I've got you," said again. "You're safe now, I've got you." She carried him home. Her apartment was small. 2 rooms, a tiny kitchen, a bathroom she shared with the unit next door. It was not much, but it was warm and it was dry, and right now that was enough. She set the dragon on her couch. She went to the kitchen and found leftover meat from her dinner, some bread, a container of water. She brought it all to him and set it down within reach. The dragon stared at the food. Then he stared at her, then back at the food, like he could not believe it was real. "Go ahead," said. "Eat, it's for you." He ate like he had never seen food before, gulping it down so fast worried he would choke. She went back to the kitchen and found more. She gave him everything she had. When he was done, he looked at her again. There were tears in his blue eyes. Could dragons cry? Did not know, but something was leaking from those eyes and it looked like tears to her. "What's your name?" she asked. He did not answer. Maybe he did not understand her language. Maybe he had never been taught to speak. Maybe he was too afraid. She said, "and you're going to be okay. I don't know how yet, but you're going to be okay, I promise." She converted her closet into a nest for him that night. She used all her blankets, all her pillows, everything soft she owned. She made it warm and dark and safe. When she put him inside, he curled up into a ball, his broken wing tucked against his body, his twisted leg carefully positioned. He looked up at her one more time. He said, his voice was small and rough like he had not used it in a long time. "My name is." Smiled at him. It was the first real smile she had smiled in months. "Hello," she said, "welcome home." Word traveled slowly from the frontier, but it traveled. Merchants carried stories. Diplomats carried whispers. And eventually, those whispers reached the golden halls of the Draconis Imperium. Emperor was holding court when his spymaster approached. Lord Al was an ancient dragon, his scales the color of dried blood, his eyes sharp despite his age. He moved through the crowd of nobles like smoke and stopped before the emperor's throne. "My emperor," he said, bowing low, "there is news from Terran Station 7 about the child." The emperor's eyes flickered. He had not thought about in months, perhaps years. The child was supposed to have died by now, or faded into obscurity, or simply ceased to exist in any way that mattered. What news? "The caretaker is dead. Illness, it seems. The child was left alone." "Then the child is dead as well," the emperor said. He felt nothing as he spoke the words. He had made peace with this outcome long ago. A crippled hatchling cannot survive without care. "That is the strange part, my emperor." Lord Al's voice dropped lower. "The child lives. A human has taken him." The court went silent. Every dragon in the room turned to look at the spymaster. "Explain," the emperor commanded. "A human female, a servant of some kind, a worker in a food establishment. She found the child and took him into her dwelling. She cares for him, my emperor. She feeds him. She shelters him. He hesitated as if the next words were difficult to say. "She carries him in public, through the station's corridors. When he cannot walk, she carries him in her arms." A murmur of outrage swept through the court. Dragons did not get carried. Dragons flew. Dragons conquered. The idea of a dragon being carried by a human like a pet, like a helpless infant, was an insult beyond measure. "This is unacceptable," said Lord, the chief advisor who had once recommended the child's death. "An imperial dragon, however defective, cannot be treated as a human's property. It shames the entire bloodline. It shames the empire itself." The emperor raised a hand for silence. His mind was working, calculating. "Send observers," he said. "I want to see what this human is doing with the child. Full surveillance. Every moment documented." Lord Al bowed. "As you command, my emperor." The observers arrived on Terran Station 7 within the week. They were small drones, nearly invisible, equipped with cameras and sensors that could record everything without being detected. They followed everywhere she went. And they sent their recordings back to the Imperium. The Emperor watched alone in his private chambers. He told himself he was gathering intelligence. He told himself he needed to understand the situation before taking action. He told himself many things. What he saw broke something inside him that he did not know could still break. He watched Wake at 5 in the morning. He watched her check on before anything else, making sure he was warm, making sure he had water, making sure his blankets had not shifted in the night. He watched her prepare food for him, cutting it into small pieces because his jaw was not strong yet, warming it because he liked warm food. He watched her go to work. He watched her come home after 12 hours on her feet, exhausted beyond measure, and immediately start taking care of again, bathing him, brushing his scales. exercising his twisted leg with gentle stretches the station's medical computer had recommended. He watched her build something. It took her 3 weeks, working late at night when she should have been sleeping. It was a cart with wheels, sized perfectly for a small dragon. When his leg hurt too much for walking, she would put him in the cart and push him through the station. Other species stared, other species whispered, did not care. She pushed that cart with her head held high like she was pushing a prince. The Emperor watched sit with every evening, teaching him to read. She had bought educational programs with money she did not have. She showed him letters, words, sentences. She taught him mathematics. She showed him star maps and explained where different planets were, what they were called, who lived there. "You see that one?" she said, pointing at a cluster of stars on the display. "That's the Draconis Imperium. That's where your people come from." Looked at the stars. His blue eyes were sad. "They didn't want me," he said. "I'm broken." The Emperor expected the human to agree, or to say nothing, or to change the subject. That is what his own people would have done. Instead, knelt down and took his face in her hands. She looked directly into his eyes. "Listen to me," she said. "Your wing doesn't make you broken. Your leg doesn't make you broken. You are whole. You are complete. You are exactly who you are supposed to be. The people who threw you away, the people who made you feel like you weren't good enough, they are the broken ones. Not you, never you." Stared at her, and then slowly something changed in his face. His scales seemed brighter. His eyes seemed clearer. "Really?" he asked. "Really," said. "I promise you, you are worthy. You have always been worthy, and anyone who tells you different is wrong." The Emperor paused the recording. His claws had left deep scratches in the arms of his chair. He had not noticed himself gripping so hard. He watched more. He watched attend a station council meeting, standing before alien bureaucrats twice her size, arguing that deserved medical care, arguing that he deserved to go to school, arguing that he was not property or a problem to be managed, but a child who had rights. "He's not a citizen," one official said. "He's not even registered." "Then register him," shot back. "He's been living here for 3 years. He's part of this community whether you like it or not, and he deserves to be treated like a person." She won. The Emperor did not know how. She had no power, no influence, no weapons. She had only her voice and her stubborn, impossible determination. He watched take his first steps with a brace had bought for his leg. It had cost her 2 months of savings. She cheered when he walked across the room, clapping her hands, her eyes bright with tears. He watched breathe fire for the first time. It was small, barely a flicker, but it was fire. Was so proud she lifted him up and spun him around, both of them laughing. Laughing, the Emperor had never heard his son laugh. He watched come home one night more tired than usual. She had worked a double shift because another worker was sick. Her feet were bleeding from standing so long, but she still sat with. She still read to him. She still made him feel loved. "Why do you do this?" asked her. "I'm not your child, I'm not even human. Why do you take care of me?" Was quiet for a moment. Then she smiled. "Because someone has to," she said. "Because you deserve it. Because love isn't about what species you are or where you come from. It's about choosing to care even when it's hard, especially when it's hard." The Emperor turned off the recordings. He sat in darkness for a long time. He had ruled for 3,000 years. He had conquered worlds. He had commanded armies. He had done things that would make stars tremble. But he had never done what this human woman was doing. He had never loved something broken. He had never chosen to care when it was hard. He had thrown his son away like garbage. And this human, this tiny, fragile, short-lived creature, had picked him up and made him shine. The Emperor did not know what to do with the feelings inside him. They were old and strange and painful, like muscles that had not been used in centuries. But he knew one thing. He had to go to Terran Station 7. He had to see this for himself. The day the Emperor came to Terran Station 7 was a day no one would ever forget. It started with the ships, 12 dragon warships around the station appearing from nothing like nightmares given form. They were massive, each one larger than the entire station itself, their hulls black as the void between stars. They did not attack. They did not need to. Their presence alone was a message. We could destroy you whenever we want. Alarms screamed throughout the station. People ran through corridors, shouting, panicking, trying to reach escape pods that would be useless against such firepower. Station security scrambled to figure out what was happening, why an entire fleet of the Draconis Imperium had suddenly appeared at their doorstep. Was at work when the alarms started. She dropped her serving tray and ran. She ran faster than she had ever run in her life, shoving through crowds, ignoring the pain in her legs, thinking only of. He would be alone in the apartment. He would be scared. She reached home in minutes, was huddled in his nest, shaking, his scales pale with fear. He gasped when she burst through the door. "What's happening? What's wrong?" "I don't know," she said, scooping him up. "But it's going to be okay. Whatever it is, it's going to be okay." She held him close. She could feel his heart's beating against her chest, too fast, too afraid. She stroked his scales and whispered comfort to him, even though she was terrified herself. The station's communication system crackled to life. A voice spoke, deep and ancient and cold. "This is Emperor of the Draconis Imperium. I am coming aboard. No one will interfere. No one will be harmed, provided I am given what I have come for." His blood turned to ice. She knew that name. Everyone knew that name. The Dragon Emperor, ruler of 12 star systems, the most powerful being in this part of the galaxy. And she knew with a horrible certainty that he had come for. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." Looked up at her, his blue eyes were wide. "He's my father," he said. His voice was small and strange. "The Emperor, he's my father. He sent me away. He didn't want me." Held him. "I don't care who he is," she said. "I don't care if he's the ruler of the universe. He's not taking you. I won't let him." "But he threw you away," said fiercely. "He left you to die. I found you eating garbage behind a diner. I watched you cry yourself to sleep for months because you thought no one loved you. He doesn't get to come back now and pretend he cares. He doesn't get to take you." Buried his face against her shoulder. He did not argue. He did not want to leave. Was the only mother he had ever known. The Imperial shuttle landed in the main docking bay. Watched it through the window of her apartment, holding, trying to think of what to do. She had no weapons. She had no power. She had nothing but herself and her love for this child. She went to the docking bay anyway. She did not know why. It was stupid. It was probably suicidal. But she could not hide and wait for them to come find her. She could not cower in her apartment while her son's fate was decided without her. The docking bay was empty. Everyone had fled. The only sounds were the hiss of the shuttle's cooling engines and own footsteps as she walked toward it. The door opened. Emperor stepped out. He was enormous. Even who had learned so much about dragons from was not prepared for how big he was. He towered over her like a mountain, his obsidian and gold scales gleaming under the station's lights. Heat radiated from his body, making the air shimmer. His golden eyes burned with an inner fire that seemed to see everything, know everything. Behind him came guards, advisors, officials, an entire retinue of dragons, each one terrifying in their own right. They spread out behind their emperor, watching like predators watching prey. Stood her ground, was clutched against her chest, his face hidden, his whole body trembling. The emperor stopped a few meters away. He looked at the small dragon in her arms. Something flickered in those golden eyes, too fast to read. "You are the human," he said. His voice was like distant thunder. "The one who took my offspring." "I'm the human who saved your son," said. Her voice shook, but she spoke anyway. "After you threw him away." A murmur of shock went through the dragon retinue. No one spoke to the emperor like that. No one in 3,000 years had dared. "You will return what is mine," the emperor said. It was not a request. His arms tightened around, "No." The emperor's eyes narrowed. Smoke curled from his nostrils. "Do you understand who I am, human, what I could do to you?" "Yes," said. "You're the dragon emperor. You could kill me with a single breath. You could destroy this entire station. You have all the power in the universe." She took a breath. "But that doesn't make you right, and it doesn't make him yours." "He is my blood." "Blood doesn't make family," shot back. "Love makes family. Care makes family. Being there when someone needs you makes family. You abandoned him. You left him on the station with a guardian who hated him. You let him starve and suffer and believe he was worthless for 3 years. That's not family. That's not fatherhood. That's cruelty." The emperor said nothing. His flames flickered inside his chest, visible through his scales. Kept going. The words poured out of her like water through a broken dam. "I found him eating garbage. Garbage. A prince of the Draconis Imperium living behind a dumpster, so hungry he couldn't stand. Do you know what that feels like? Do you have any idea what you did to him?" "I gave him life," the emperor said. "I spared him when our laws demanded death." "You gave him survival," corrected. "There's a difference. I gave him life. I taught him to read. I helped him learn to walk. I sat with him through nightmares and told him he was loved. I built him a cart with my own hands because I couldn't afford a better one. I gave him a home." She stepped forward. It was insane. It was the bravest thing she had ever done. "I don't have warships," she said. "I don't have fire or scales or armies. I'm a waitress. I make barely enough credits to survive. My apartment is tiny and it smells like grease and I'm tired all the time." Tears were running down her face now. "But I have never, not once, made this child feel like he wasn't good enough. I have never made him feel worthless. I have never looked at him like he was a problem to be solved or a shame to be hidden. Can you say the same?" Silence. The entire docking bay was silent. The guards, the advisors, everyone, frozen in place, staring at this tiny human woman confronting their emperor. Looked up at. He was so big she had to crane her neck to meet his eyes. She was crying and shaking and probably about to die. "He's not yours anymore," she said. "He stopped being yours the day you threw him away. He's mine now, and I will fight you for him. I will fight your whole empire for him. I don't care if I lose. Some things are worth fighting for even when you can't win." The emperor stared at her. And then something happened that no one expected. Something that would be recorded in dragon history for 10,000 years. Emperor the Eternal, ruler of 12 star systems, conqueror of worlds, the most powerful dragon who had ever lived. He gasped. It was a small sound, almost inaudible, but every dragon in the room heard it. They saw their emperor's golden eyes go wide. They saw him take a step back, not in threat, but in something that looked almost like awe. He was looking but more than that, he was looking at his son's scales, bright and healthy, at his son's eyes, clear and trusting, peeking out from his arms, at his son, alive and loved and whole in ways that had nothing to do with wings or legs. He was seeing, for the first time, what strength really looked like. "You would die for him," the emperor said quietly. "You would truly die for him, a child that is not yours, a species that is not your own." "Yes," said, without hesitation. The emperor was silent for a long time. Then he did something that no dragon had ever done before a human. He lowered his head, just slightly, in what could only be described as a bow. "I think," he said, "we need to talk." They talked through the night. The emperor dismissed his guards, his advisors, his entire retinue. He sent them back to the ships with orders to wait. Then he followed to her tiny apartment, bending low to fit through doorways designed for humans, folding himself into a corner of her living room like a mountain trying to sit in a shoebox. Stayed close to, but he watched his father with curious eyes. He had been an infant when he was sent away. He did not remember this dragon, but he knew who he was. Made tea because she did not know what else to do. She offered some to the emperor. He declined, but there was something almost amused in his eyes, like the gesture surprised him. "Why do you do this?" the emperor asked. He was looking around her apartment at the tiny kitchen, the worn furniture, the closet she had converted into a nest. "You live in poverty. You work yourself to exhaustion. You could have given him to the authorities. You could have walked away. Why did you choose to carry this burden?" Sat down across from him in her lap. "He's not a burden," she said. "He's a child. There's a difference. In my culture, a child who cannot contribute is a burden. A child who is weak is a threat to the bloodline. We have laws, ancient laws, that demand such children be removed." "Your laws are wrong," said simply. The emperor's flames flickered. "You say that very easily." "Because it's true," stroked Scales gently. "I'm not saying your people are evil. I'm sure you have reasons for your laws. 10,000 years of history, threats you had to survive, enemies you had to fight. I understand that. But reasons don't make something right. And killing children because they're different isn't right. It never will be." The emperor was quiet. When he spoke again, his voice was different, softer, almost uncertain. "Tell me about your people," he said. "Tell me how humans have survived. You are so fragile. Your lives are so short. By all logic, you should have been extinct long ago. Yet here you are, spread across the stars, thriving. How?" Thought about this. It was a big question. She was just a waitress. She was not a philosopher or a historian. "We carry each other," she said finally. "That's it, that's our secret. When someone falls, we pick them up. When someone is weak, we protect them. When someone is different, we make room for them. Not always. We're not perfect. We hurt each other too, but at our best, that's what we do. We carry each other. Even the broken ones." "There are no broken ones," said. "Just people who need different things. Isn't broken. His wing and his leg work differently. That means he needs help with some things. So what? Everybody needs help with something. That doesn't make them less valuable. It just makes them human or dragon or whatever." The emperor looked at. His golden eyes were unreadable. "I was afraid," he said. The words seemed to cost him something. "When he was born, when I saw his wing, his leg, I was afraid of what others would say, afraid of what it meant for my bloodline, afraid that if I kept him, it would show weakness." He paused. "I did not realize that throwing him away was the greatest weakness of all." Lifted his head. He looked at the enormous dragon that was his father. "Did you ever think about me?" he asked. His voice was small. "After you sent me away?" The emperor closed his eyes. "Yes, every day. I told myself I was being merciful. I told myself you would not survive long, that your suffering would be brief. I told myself many lies." He opened his eyes again. "I watched the recordings from this station. I saw what this human did for you. I saw her teach you, care for you, love you. And I understood that I had made a terrible mistake. Not because you survived, but because you thrived. Because you became something wonderful, and I had nothing to do with it." Was quiet for a moment. Then he climbed down from his lap. He walked, slowly and carefully, across the room to where the emperor sat. His twisted leg made him wobble, but he did not fall. He stopped in front of his father and looked up at him. "I was angry at you," said. "For a long time. I thought you threw me away because I was wrong, because something was bad inside me. Help me understand that wasn't true. She helped me understand that I'm not broken. And if I'm not broken, then you didn't throw me away because of me. You threw me away because of you, because you were scared." The emperor said nothing. "I think being scared is okay," continued. "Everybody gets scared, but says being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing the right thing anyway. You were scared and you did the wrong thing, but you're here now. So maybe you can start doing the right thing instead." The emperor stared at his son. This small, crippled child who had every reason to hate him, every reason to turn away. But instead of hatred, there was something else in those blue eyes. Something that looked almost like hope. "You would forgive me?" the emperor asked. "I don't know," said honestly. "Maybe not yet, but I could try, if you try too." The Emperor reached out one massive claw. Gently, more gently than he had ever touched anything in his long life, he rested it on his son's head. "I will try," he said. 3 months later, a decree went out across the Draconis Imperium. By order of Emperor, the ancient laws of culling were abolished. From that day forward, all dragon children, regardless of physical condition, would be given care and support. Special facilities would be built. Healers would be trained. No hatchling would ever again be killed or abandoned because they were different. There was resistance. Of course there was. 10,000 years of tradition did not change overnight. Many dragons thought the Emperor had gone mad. Some whispered that the human had bewitched him somehow. But the Emperor did not waver, and slowly, very slowly, things began to change. Returned to the Imperium with his father, but not alone. Came with him, given the title of, which meant Heart Guardian in the dragon tongue. It was an honor that had never been given to a non-dragon before. It meant she was officially part of the imperial household, recognized as guardian and mother in the eyes of dragon law. She still complained about the fancy quarters they gave her. She said they were too big, too cold, too formal. She missed her little apartment sometimes, missed the smell of the diner, missed the simple life she had lived before everything changed. But she stayed, because needed her, because there was work to do, because someone had to teach these dragons how to be better, and apparently that someone was a tired waitress from Terran Station 7. Years passed, grew, his wing never straightened and he never flew like other dragons, but he learned to glide. He never ran fast, but he walked with pride. He studied hard. He was kind to others, and when he came of age, something unprecedented happened. The Emperor declared him a true heir, the first imperfect dragon to ever hold such a title in recorded history. Some dragons were horrified, others were inspired. The debate raged across the Imperium for years, but did not let it bother him. He knew who he was, he knew he was worthy. A human had taught him that. On the day of his official recognition ceremony, stood before the gathered nobles of the Imperium. His father watched from the throne, stood nearby, older now, her hair streaked with gray but her eyes still bright and fierce. Spoke to the crowd. "I was born different," he said. "For most of our history that would have been my death sentence. I would have been erased, forgotten, treated as a stain on our perfect bloodline." He paused. "But I am here. I am alive. Not because of dragon strength or dragon pride, but because a human woman found me in the garbage and decided I was worth saving." He looked at, she was crying, but she was smiling too. "She taught me something that our people forgot long ago," continued. "She taught me that strength isn't about perfection, it's about love. It's about choosing to care when caring is hard. It's about carrying each other when we fall." He turned back to the crowd. "I will never fly as high as you. I will never run as fast, but I will carry those who cannot walk as I was carried. I will protect those who are different as I was protected, and I will love without conditions as I was loved. That is the strength I will bring to this empire, and I hope, someday, you will learn to see it as strength too." The chamber was silent. Then, one by one, dragons began to lower their heads, not in shame but in respect, in acknowledgement of something they were only beginning to understand. Watched from her place of honor, her feet still hurt most days, her back still ached. She was far from home, living among creatures that used to terrify her. But she had never been prouder. Later that night, after the ceremonies were over, found her on a balcony overlooking the imperial city. The building stretched for miles, black stone and eternal flames, beautiful and terrible in equal measure. He said. She turned to him. He was so big now, bigger than she was. But he still came to her when he was confused, when he was happy, when he needed comfort. He was still her son. "Yes, baby." "Thank you," he said, "for everything, for carrying me when I couldn't walk, for believing in me when no one else did, for being my mother." reached up and put her hand on his face, just as she had done when he was small and afraid. "Thank you for letting me," she said. They stood together in the darkness, watching the stars burn above the Imperium. Somewhere out there across the galaxy, humans were doing what they had always done: working, struggling, surviving, carrying each other through the endless darkness. They were not the strongest species. They were not the most advanced, but they had something that even the mighty dragons had forgotten. They had heart, and sometimes that was enough to change the universe. The end.